The light of creation still hung over the earth, like a veil of pure perfection that enveloped the entire world. The earth was untouched, unmarked by pain, war, or destruction. Man walked with God in perfect harmony, in a world where all was beautiful, calm, and immaculate. But somewhere in the shadows, something began to shift. The perfect balance, which seemed eternal, was about to be shattered. The garden, where it all began, was a paradise without equal. The mountains rose in grandeur, the seas danced to the rhythm of the wind, and the sky, a deep blue, reflected the glory of the Creator. The animals lived in harmony, as if they shared the same soul as the earth. And Adam, with his eyes fixed on the wonders of creation, felt at home. Eve, by his side, smiled at the world, a part of him, with the animals approaching in complete trust. Paradise was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the morning light never faded. Adam looked at Eve, a serene smile on his lips.
All of this was given to us.
We were not only created, we were loved.
Her eyes were teary, but not with sadness. They were tears of wonder at the beauty of the world God had created for them. He knew that creation was not just a gift, it was a reflection of God's love for them. And for a moment, everything seemed perfect, without a shadow of doubt or fear. But somewhere, deep in Eden, a seed was planted. A soft, almost inaudible whisper crept into Eve's heart. The serpent appeared, gliding among the trees, its beauty radiant, and its voice, soft as the wind, hissed doubt.
God really say?
A malicious suggestion that spread like wildfire, touching the woman's heart. Doubt was born where once there had been complete trust. The choice was before them, and by choosing to disobey divine command, the fall began. Suddenly, the world changed. Eden, that perfect refuge, became but a distant memory. The man and woman were driven from the garden, and a flaming sword was placed at the entrance, marking the separation between earth and heaven. They were alone, cut off from God's presence, now aware of their vulnerability and the depth of the sin they had brought into the world. Paradise was lost forever, and with it, the innocence of Adam and Eve. When Eve gave birth to Cain, there was pain in her eyes and a deep sadness in her heart. The birth of a child should be a celebration, but now the joy was somber, mixed with the knowledge that the world would be different. Sin had already infiltrated their lineage, and generations to come would bear the weight of that choice. Cain grew to be proud, distant, and deep down, increasingly alienated from God's goodness. Abel, on the other hand, was different. Humble and devout, he dedicated his life to the Lord. With respect and reverence, he offered the Creator the best of his flock.
I will offer the best of my sheep.
He understood that to honor God, it was necessary to give the best of himself. Cain, for his part, watched in silence, bitter. He offered God the last of his harvest, the fruits left over from the earth, without attention, without love. He chose the best fruits for himself and left the worst for God. And in offering his offering, Cain felt he was fulfilling an obligation, not an act of worship. God was pleased with Abel's offering, but rejected Cain's. The difference was clear. Abel offered from the heart, with genuine faith, while Cain simply gave what he didn't want. Sin was now completely ingrained in his heart. When Cain saw that his offering was rejected, anger overcame him. Jealousy, pride, bitterness, all of it converged on a single point. He looked at his brother with hatred. The field became the scene of his wrath. Cain, consumed with rage, approached Abel. Wordless, unrepentant, he raised his hand against his brother. The field, once a place of growth and life, became the tomb of the righteous. Cain killed Abel, and the blood of his righteous brother cried out from the earth, echoing in God's ears. The silence that followed was deep and dense, as if creation itself had paused to mourn the loss. God looked upon the scene, and for a moment the face of his presence was hidden. Cain, now marked by guilt, fled. He left behind his mother's gaze, the pain in his father's eyes, and went on to live as a wanderer, wandering a world now well acquainted with the weight of sin. Life went on, but it was different. Evil had spread, and Abel's blood cried out for justice. Seth, Adam and Eve's other son, was born. His lineage, though marked by pain and the fall, still sought God. But sin had become ingrained in the following generations, and humanity moved toward an uncertain future, ever further from the original purity of creation. Human knowledge began to expand. The first cities arose on the fertile plains. Tribes became great nations, and men began to dominate the earth. They tamed animals, shaped metals, and created music and art. But despite all the progress, corruption continued to spread like a shadow over every aspect of life. Men began to name the winds, carve images, build altars and temples. But the true relationship with God had been lost, and offerings were now made heartlessly, like Cain's. Evil grew, and the seeds of sin were already deeply planted in humanity. Tribes and cities continued to expand, but what had begun in Eden now seemed a distant legend, a story men had forgotten. Sin, which began with a simple choice, spread throughout the world, becoming a part of everything humanity touched. But few called upon the name of the Lord. In a world increasingly distant from the goodness and purity of old, hearts grew hard. Among those who still remembered God, one man stood out, Lamech, a descendant of Cain, a man of sharp words and violent hands, proclaimed his strength and his vengeance as a trophy.
I have killed a man for wounding me. If Cain's mark demands vengeance sevenfold, that mine shall be 77-fold.
He had become a symbol of pride and destruction, a promise of endless retaliation. Revenge seemed to be his only religion, and with it, he infected those around him. The era was marked by pioneering spirit, but also by human ego. Man, increasingly alienated from his essence, began to see force as the only language capable of defining the world. Yet, even in this world of violence and pride, other names emerged. Jabal, the father of those who lived in tents and raised livestock, knew nomadic life, but also dependence on the land and the heavens. Jubal, the master of melodies, crafted bone flutes and harps with strings made from the plants that grew around his village. Tubal-Cain, the blacksmith, mastered metal and the art of war, forging spears and swords, a testament to the rise and fall of humanity. Art and destruction were born together, in a paradox where the beauty of creation was inevitably intertwined with the devastating force that humanity now sought. As cities grew, men began to form kingdoms. Leaders became kings, and palaces of rough stone rose in the valleys, dominating the landscape as monuments to human vanity. Festivals and sacrifices took over daily life. Altars were erected not to God, but to idols of power, wealth, and glory. People, once humble and with hearts set on devotion, now indulged in a vicious cycle of ego worship. The search for the divine was replaced by the relentless pursuit of self-exaltation. From above, the Lord observed this transformation. The distance between man and God grew. The Lord saw how faith was giving way to power and how men's hearts became increasingly insensitive to truth. The search for spiritual understanding was being overtaken by arrogance and the will to dominate. The connection with the Creator was disintegrating, but still a spark of hope remained. In the days of Enosh, something began to change. People, tired of their own decay, began to call upon the name of the Lord once more. This moment, though small compared to the great abyss of corruption, brought a breeze of hope.
In the hearts of the righteous, a flame of faith still burned, though dim, like embers in the darkness.
Mankind was lost, but there were still those who sought, still those who remembered the Creator.
Creation, however, was no longer the same. The trees seemed less green, the skies less clear.
The animals became more cautious, more distant, as if aware of the corruption that was taking over the world. The earth, restless, seemed to reflect the pain of the sin that men had sown. Everything had changed, and the echo of human choice still reverberated in every living being, in every stone, in every river. And then, the whispers began to grow. Ancient tales began to be whispered among men, stories of celestial beings who had descended to earth, the Watchers. Their presence inspired a mixture of awe and fear. Men called them gods, while women saw them as saviors. These beings, sent to observe humanity, were beginning to break the limits of their divine mission.
Behold, how beautiful are the daughters of men.
They murmured among themselves, now seduced by beauty and carnal desire. In a sacred place, high atop Mount Hermon, 200 of them made a pact. They swore to descend to earth and never return until they had taken human wives. It was the beginning of an age of corruption that would transform the world forever. When they descended, their arrival was glorious. Men saw them as gods. Their clothes shone like starlight. Their voices echoed like soft thunder. Their eyes pierced the human soul with indescribable power. Women desired them, while men feared them. They were no ordinary beings, and their presence reverberated in the hearts of all. Human women, fascinated by their supernatural beauty, surrendered themselves to them. And the children of these unions were no ordinary ones. They grew up with immense stature, unparalleled strength, and an arrogance that surpassed anything known to men. They were the Nephilim, the giants, the first renowned heroes. With their power, they began to dominate mankind, subjugating the creatures of the earth, and soon became the first tyrants, known and feared throughout the world. Cities began to build statues in their honor. Their names were whispered with reverence, but also with fear. Yet something was deeply wrong. They did not age like humans. Their hunger was insatiable, and they soon turned against everything and everyone. First, they began to consume the tombs, searching for food. When there was nothing left to eat, they turned against humanity itself. The fertile plains, once places of abundance, became camps of slavery. The Nephilim demanded tributes of blood, and fearful humanity submitted.
They, who had come from heaven, were now corrupted and taking the earth as their domain. Knowledge, given by those who were supposed to be observers, was now used as a means of control. Witchcraft, astrology, enchantments, genetic manipulation, hallucinogenic herbs, and weapons of war spread like a cancer among mankind. The sky began to darken. Azazel, one of the leaders of the Watchers, taught men to forge swords, shields, and armor. He also instructed women in seduction and the use of makeup to gain power, teaching them to summon the elements of the earth. Knowledge was transformed into power, and power was used for control. War became an art, and lust a religion. The blood of men flowed over the stones like wine, nourishing the gods and their followers. The world was sinking into an abyss of destruction. Amidst this decay, a new race of creatures was born. The hybrids. Abominations, monsters, spawned from the union between the children of the Watchers and human women. Beast-like beings, with immense strength, a monster-like appearance, eyes that expressed their rage, iron skin, and voices that could drive men mad. These distorted and monstrous creatures belonged to no natural order. Creation was being violated, and the wounds opened by the fall were widening. The world was collapsing, and humanity, with its blind eyes, could not see the depths of the abyss in which it found itself. The choices made in the days of Adam and Eve had reverberated for generations, and now the consequences were more visible than ever. Man, who had been created in the image and likeness of God, was becoming a shadow of his former self. The human heart had turned away from the light. Faith had become legend, and the Creator's name was remembered only in whispers. Pride had replaced obedience, and wisdom was replaced by corrupting curiosity. Man yearned for power, for control, for eternity. And it was in this burning desire that he encountered the Watchers. They descended from on high, covered in splendor. Their faces shone like fire, and their eyes held the reflection of the stars. They came in the form of glory, and the world bowed before them. They brought with them knowledge that man should never possess, the secret of metals, the cutting of blades, the use of precious stones, the power of herbs, the design of the constellations, and the paths of the wind. Men called them masters, and later, gods. They built altars in their honor, erected towers and temples that touched the clouds, and offered sacrifices to them. Women adorned their bodies with gold and rare perfumes, seeking the favor of the celestial beings. And the Watchers, overcome by vanity, accepted worship. What had begun as instruction became worship. What was wisdom turned into idolatry. Each Watcher took upon himself a domain and a legion of followers. Asel, the warrior, taught how to forge weapons and armor, and iron came to dominate the earth. Semyaza, the mighty, revealed the secrets of words and the hidden arts. Barakel showed men the path of the stars, and women the power of enchantments. Kokabel, the luminous one, taught how to read the stars and control the weather. And many others, each with their own heresy, shaped humanity in their image. And so, the Watchers became kings over the nations. Their voices were heard in assemblies. Their names were engraved on stones, their images carved in gold and ivory. The people called them sons of heaven, and the true God was forgotten. Men raised their eyes not to the Creator, but to the mountains where the Watchers dwelt. There, lightning was seen as signs of their wrath, and the wind as the whisper of their presence. And from them were born the giants, the sons of corruption, beings who united the strength of angels with the flesh of men. They were monsters of power and fury, of immense size and deformed souls. They had voices that made the hills tremble, and eyes that burned like fire. They ate the fruit of the earth, the livestock, and even men themselves. When there was nothing left to devour, they turned on each other, and the blood of the giants stained the ground. But even in their destruction, they were worshipped. Nations erected colossuses in their image, statues with iron wings and stone faces. People offered their sons and daughters in sacrifice, and around their temples, crowds danced and sang hymns in languages heaven had forgotten.
Violence became law. Justice was buried. Love and compassion disappeared. Power was the new faith, and strength was the new God. Kings sought counsel from the Watchers, priests served idols, and magicians summoned spirits that brought confusion and destruction. The world had become a furnace of sin, and the breath of life began to corrupt. The Watchers ruled over the people with an iron fist and promises of glory. They controlled the seasons, manipulated the weather, and guided the minds of men like a blind flock. And men served them with devotion, believing that these false gods could grant them immortality. They built entire cities dedicated to them, temples upon the seas, palaces carved into the mountains, altars covered in blood and incense. The prayers that once rose to the Creator now faded into smoke before the thrones of the Watchers. The heavens themselves were covered in shame. The stars seemed to fade in lamentation. The faithful angels watched in silence, and the earth trembled under the weight of the abomination. The heart of man, corrupted and hardened, no longer sought redemption. Evil had become nature, and goodness a rare vestige. Generations were born in darkness and died in idolatry. The righteous were persecuted, the innocent sacrificed, and the powerful became drunk on the blood of the weak. And yet, amidst the dust and despair, there was still a remnant. Few, almost forgotten, kept the memory of the Creator. They were broken-hearted men who walked in the shadow of giants and still whispered ancient prayers. Their eyes turned to heaven, and their voices cried out for justice, and the Creator heard. From the heavens he gazed upon the work of his hands and saw that the earth was covered in corruption. Nothing remained pure, neither thought, nor heart, nor blood. The Watchers had defiled creation, and man had become a slave to his own perdition. Then the silence of heaven was broken. The winds began to stir, and the waters of the deep began to churn. The time of patience was drawing to a close. The Most High arose from his throne, and the faithful angels awaited his word. For when false gods reign on earth, the true God prepares judgment. And when the heavens open, nothing can remain hidden. The roar of justice drew near, and the whole earth trembled, waiting for the voice that had once created the world, the same voice that would now come to purify it. And the heavens watched in silence, but not all were silent. A man walked with God. His name was Enoch. A descendant of Seth, he did not accept the course of the earth. His eyes saw beyond the veil. His dreams were prophetic. In a vision, he saw the throne of God and heard,
"Go and proclaim the judgment that is to come."
Enoch stood before the crowds and shouted,
The Most High sees. Nothing is hidden. The Watchers will be judged. The giants will fall.
But they mocked him. They laughed at his words and tried to silence him. Enoch, however, was unafraid. He wrote everything on stone and on parchment paper. His records spoke of portals, celestial spheres, angelic hosts, and the day of the great judgment. And then, one day, Enoch disappeared. He was no longer seen among men. They said God had taken him for himself, snatched him away before evil consumed all. And his absence was felt like the extinguishing of the last flame in the night. Without warning and without limits, the Watchers continued their work. The forest began to wither. The ground trembled. The stars seemed less bright. The rivers changed course. Nature groaned under the weight of corruption. The sky, once blue, had grown heavy and gray, and the winds carried omens. The cry of the earth reached the heavens, and the Most High summoned his holy angels.
What has been done cannot continue. The Watchers will be chained, their children extinguished, the earth purified.
The archangel Uriel was sent to Enoch, already in the heavens, to write the sentence of the fallen angels. Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel prepared for the execution of the judgment. But on earth, corruption still spread like an invisible plague. Men built towers that tore through the clouds, trying to touch the heavens. They said they wanted to reach the gods, but their hearts longed only to be like them. Women offered their children in rituals to the Nephilim, believing that the blood of the innocent would bring power and protection. Blood cried out from the earth, and its sound was like thunder in the ears of God. The Watchers taught men the art of mastering the elements. They controlled fire and wind, shaped the weather, and altered the seasons. But every spell cast, every secret revealed, further eroded the balance of creation. The world burned with magic, cruelty, and darkness. The seas became impure, crops rotted before harvest, and the skies were covered in smoke. The nights were no longer silent. In the winds, distant screams could be heard, the wails of lost souls and the echoes of heavenly voices. The ground cracked, as if the earth itself wished to expel the evil that contaminated it. In the heavens, lightning danced without thunder, signs of a power gathering beyond the clouds. It was as if all creation knew something was coming. The birds fled westward, the beasts abandoned their dens, and the very air seemed denser, as if breathing judgment. Even the giants, in their arrogance, looked to the heavens and feared what they did not understand. The angels watched, prepared for the final command. And the Most High spoke.
The time of cleansing is come. The earth will be washed clean, and the blood of the innocent will be avenged. The Watchers who corrupted the flesh will be cast into the depths. The giants will perish beneath the waves, and a new covenant will rise from the waters.
The decree echoed through the cosmos. The stars trembled, and the sea responded with fury. The clouds began to gather over the mountains like a heavenly army, and amid thunder and lightning, the name of the Lord was heard again. For the promised judgment had been written before the foundation of the world, and now the time had come. the time when God would wash the earth with tears of heaven and the fire of justice. When the light of creation had become but a distant memory, the world was filled with corruption. But amidst the chaos, one lineage still endured. The descendants of Seth, though weakened, preserved the memory of the Creator. They hoped, prayed, and taught their children that all was not lost. They spoke of a God who still saw, still heard, still cared. Among them was a calm, just, and hard-working man. While others lost themselves in violence and depravity, he walked among the trees and listened to the voice of the wind. His name was Noah. Noah worked the land with calloused hands and a serene gaze. Men mocked him, calling him out of date, a dreamer trapped in ancient myths. But Noah kept a secret that did not come from men. He heard the voice of God. Walking through the fields, he felt the presence of the Almighty like a gentle breeze through the leaves. He saw the sacred in the small things, in the rhythm of the river, in the bird song, in the silence between thunderclaps. While the world descended into madness, Noah cultivated faith. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, learned from him to fear the Lord, even living among a corrupt and cruel generation. While the people worshipped false gods and the Nephilim reigned as tyrants, Noah and his household remained faithful, sustained by something the world had forgotten. Then, on a night unlike any other, the heavens opened. The darkness shimmered in hues humanity had never seen. Lights danced like rivers of fire in the stars. A presence descended upon Noah, powerful and serene, and a voice, like thunder mingled with wind, spoke to his spirit.
The end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood.
Lord, how will this be?
I will give the measure, and I will establish my covenant with you.
The next morning, Noah gathered his family together. His face was firm, his eyes resolute.
God spoke to me. The judgment will come in the form of water. We must build an ark.
The sons looked at him in silence. The wind blew between them like a whisper of confirmation. Shem was the first to say,
If the Lord has spoken, we will obey.
And so the project began. Timber was cut, logs were shaped. The sound of axes echoed through valleys that had never seen rain. The villagers laughed as they passed
Look at the
by.
madman!
Who builds a ship where there's no sea?
But Noah didn't answer. Sweat ran down his face as he placed beam upon beam. Every hammer blow was a prayer. Every stake driven into the ground, a declaration of faith. Meanwhile, the Nephilim ruled the cities with an iron fist. Men were forced to fight each other for entertainment. Children were sacrificed in rituals. Women became servants of the gods and giants. The palaces of the Watchers, now deformed by their own corruption, were temples of fire and blood. The human kings, servants of the fallen angels, ruled with cruelty, and the earth became a mirror of hell. But the heavens did not remain silent. The faithful angels moved. The Most High raised his throne in judgment and sent orders to his servants. Michael, the prince of the heavenly host, received the command.
Go down and destroy the giants.
And he descended, not as an ordinary flame, but as a living storm, a whirlwind of light and power. Behind him came Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, and countless legions of angels, armed with swords that flashed like lightning. The heavenly court arose, and judgment was decreed. The heavens filled with silence as the Most High's sentence echoed. Not only the Watchers, the fallen angels, would be punished, but also their wives, the women who joined the rebellion and gave birth to monsters. They were not victims, they were accomplices. They were daughters of the earth who coveted the brightness of the sky. They drank of forbidden knowledge and became mothers of giants, queens of empires of destruction. While the Nephilim ruled with brutality, women reveled in power, worshipped as goddesses, revered as bearers of the angels' strength. But the time of mercy had come to an end. The Creator, in His justice, spoke to the heavenly armies.
Michael, commander of the hosts of heaven, bind the Watchers, judge the women, and purify the earth. And Michael descended, surrounded by legions of light. The mountains trembled at his touch. The Watchers were bound beneath the eternal rocks, sealed in darkness. But for the women, those who had shared in the sin of heaven, the punishment would be different and far more terrible. The beauty that had made them desirable was stripped from them. The glory that had once enchanted the angels turned to darkness. Their faces lost their radiance, their voices became wails, and their tears fed the waters of the abyss. They were transformed into mermaids, neither human nor celestial, trapped between worlds. Their bodies became hybrids, half woman, half shadow, and their voices, now cursed, would echo eternally over the waves, luring men to the same fate of perdition they had once chosen. And so, the Watchers' wives became daughters of the abyss, symbols of temptation and punishment. But Michael was not finished yet. There was something else, a deeper corruption, alive upon the earth. The Nephilim, the giants, the children of angels and women. They ruled the world with ungodly strength, devouring the flesh of men and drinking the blood of the innocent. Their cities were temples of cruelty, and their thrones altars of pain. Then Michael approached silently and whispered invisible words among them, seeds of doubt and distrust. A divine breath spread the poison of division among the giants, and what had been a united army became a field of treason. The brothers began to turn against each other. One accused the other of seeking the angels' favor. Envy grew like fire, and the giants' pride turned to madness. And so, the war between the Nephilim began. The earth shook with their footsteps, and the sound of their battles echoed through the valleys. The mountains split open under the weight of their falling bodies, and the giants' blood flowed like rivers, drowning the plains. They, born of the forbidden union, destroyed themselves with their own hands. Michael watched from above. His mission required no sword, only justice. For the pride of the Nephilim would be their downfall, and God's judgment would be fulfilled through their own corruption. When the last giant fell, the winds ceased, the seas fell silent,
and the voices of the watchers' wives, now sirens, wailed among the waves, singing for their dead children, weeping for a glory that would never return. Then Michael raised his sword. The firmament rent with light, and the voice of God echoed once more, "Corruption has been cut from the earth. The time of judgment has begun."
The sky fell silent, and the earth awaited what was to come. The Watchers, captured and defeated, were chained by Michael and cast into caverns of eternal darkness, prisons of stone and fire, where they would await the day of judgment. The world fell silent for a moment, but the air was still heavy. The waters, which had been guarded since creation, began to churn. Noah looked up to the sky. The wind changed. The birds ceased their song. And for the first time, the thunder came without lightning. It was the harbinger, the countdown to judgment. The time for mercy was running out. And the distant sound of rain, still invisible, could already be heard in the halls of heaven. Noah continued. Day after day he hammered away under the sun and the mockery. The ark grew before the eyes of the world, a wooden fortress erected in the middle of the plain, a home for the living amid approaching death. 3 stories, countless compartments, and, like a silent mystery, the animals began to arrive. They came from every corner of the earth, guided not by trails, but by an invisible instinct, as if obeying an ancient call. Lions walked side by side with lambs. Serpents coiled silently, without venom. Eagles perched beside doves, and the impossible became real before men's eyes. But men did not believe. The mocking laughter still echoed in the villages. The feasts did not cease. On the contrary, they increased. Orgies multiplied like plagues. God's name was mocked in the squares and taverns. While Noah preached, he hammered, and while he hammered, he wept.
Repent. There is still time.
But the answer was only the laughter of the wicked. Women danced around the fire, and men sang songs of praise to the Nephilim, their false gods of stone and flesh. Even so, the signs began. The moon turned red as congealed blood. Wild animals fled the forests, as if sensing the morning of creation. The winds blew from east and west simultaneously, howling like voices of lamentation. Light rain fell on forgotten deserts. The ground trembled beneath the feet of the arrogant. But the human heart remained hardened. Even in the face of omens, man mocked the unseen. And then, the 7th day arrived. The ark was ready, immobile, imposing, like an altar before destiny. God spoke one last time. "Come, you and all your household, into the ark, for I have found in you a righteous man in this generation." Noah didn't answer. He just looked at the horizon, and the horizon seemed to look back. He gathered his family. One by one they entered the great vessel, without fanfare, without goodbyes. The silence of the obedient contrasted with the noise of the crowd.
Coward! Come celebrate with us!
Noah simply closed his eyes, and a tear fell onto the wood he himself had anointed with tears and faith. And the supernatural happened. The ark door moved on its own, slowly, solemnly, as if moved by the will of heaven itself. A muffled roar echoed through the valley. The birds ceased their flight. Even the wind held its breath. Noah remained silent inside the ark. The sound of the creaking wood was the only evidence that the weather had changed. Outside, the laughter subsided. Fear began to dawn in the eyes of the mockers.
Where is the prophet's flood?
But the sky no longer smiled. The first drop fell, a heavy, solitary drop, which streaked the dust of the earth and dissolved like a divine tear. Then another, and another. The laughter ceased. Children ran. Men looked up in astonishment. The wind roared. The clouds twisted, forming colossal eyes of vapor and lightning. And then the firmament tore. The floodgates of heaven opened, and what descended was not rain. It was judgment. The water fell furiously, dense, alive, as if it had a consciousness. Lightning slashed the veil of the sky like spears hurled by warring angels. The ground shook, and violent fountains gushed from the earth itself, opening deep wounds in the soil. Creation, once perfect, began to crumble before the Creator. Inside the ark, Noah prayed. His voice was a whisper lost amid the roaring of the waves. The animals howled, roared, and banged against the walls, overcome by primordial fear. But the ark held, sustained by a strength that was not human. The drops became waves, the waves became seas, and the seas swallowed the world. The paths disappeared, the houses dissolved, the cities were wiped off the map. Outside, panic reigned. Those who had mocked now cried out.
Noah, open the door. Let us in.
Forgive us. Now we believe.
But the door had been sealed by the hand of God Himself. No human force could break it. But it was too late. Faith is not born of fear. It is born of repentance. And the time for repentance had passed. The waters rose with relentless speed. What had once been solid ground now became an abyss. 1,000-year-old trees fell like fragile branches before the force of judgment. Towers erected in homage to the Nephilim crumbled like sand before the wind of divine wrath. Mountains, once proud, began to disappear beneath the veil of water. The screams of men mingled with the roar of the flood, a symphony of despair, thunder, and judgment. The few giants that remained, once feared as gods, tried to resist. With brutal blows, they lifted rocks, defied the waves, roared against the sky. But the force that descended was not just water. It was justice. One of them, overcome by the madness of pride, cried out in a thunderous voice,
We are eternal!
And then a liquid wall swallowed him, forever silencing the arrogance of those who believed themselves immortal. The altars of the Watchers were ripped from the ground. The statues fell. The profane inscriptions disappeared under the weight of the abyss. Corrupted knowledge, sorcery, and lust, all were swallowed up. The entire earth seemed to weep as it was washed with tears and rage. God's justice, ignored for generations, now descended like an avalanche. What had been mockery was now a scream. What had been pride was now terror. Inside the ark, Noah embraced his wife. Ham held Japheth's shoulders tightly, trying to contain the fear that trembled in his hands. Shem, looking up at the ceiling creaking under the storm, muttered,
God has kept his word. Yes, but my heart aches for them.
Outside, the sound was deafening. For 40 days and 40 nights, the waters did not cease. Each dawn was darker than the last. Each thunderclap sounded like the roar of celestial beasts. Lightning slashed across the sky like swords in an invisible war. The living earth now mourned its own corruption. There were no more cities, no more music, no more feasts. The watchers were chained in the abyss of darkness. The Nephilim lay in the depths. Nightmares drowned beneath the chaos. Humanity had been reduced to a single family, a small remnant surrounded by wood, faith, and hope. The waters rose above the highest mountains. Ararat, Sinai, the peaks of the world, all were swallowed. And then, the world fell silent. There were no more screams. There was no more war, only the sound of the wind, the rain, and the ark floating in the middle of nowhere. Inside, days blended into nights. Time dissolved in the incessant sway of the waves. The sounds of animals filled the interior, a living chorus within a floating tomb. On the surface of the waters floated driftwood, torn clothes, the ruins of temples and cities. It was the cemetery of the old world. What had once been dominion was now a memory. Human pride had sunk, too heavy to be saved. But God had not forgotten his promise. Above the clouds, the light still shone. The angels watched the ark with silent reverence, for what survived within it was not just flesh. It was the future itself, the seed of humanity, the echo of grace. Gradually, the fury began to subside. The rain lost its violence. The thunder receded like a vanquished beast. The clouds parted, revealing a golden slash in the sky. A single ray of sunlight broke through the mist. It was the first in many days, a reminder that life still existed. The ark floated solemnly, alone, like a witness between two worlds. The old had been judged. The new was still being born. And for a time, the earth waited. The sun returned, timidly, over a silent world. The ark rocked on the waters that covered the entire earth. Noah kept faith as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. The wind brought a new scent, not of death, but of promise. Then Noah released a raven, then a dove, and when it returned, bearing an olive branch in its beak, hope blossomed within that silent ark. Reverently, Noah knelt, his calloused hands lifted, and he gave thanks. The waters receded, the mountains reappeared. The ark rested gently on Mount Ararat, like a heart finally finding rest after a storm. Then God spoke. "Come out of the ark. Multiply. Fill the earth again." The door opened and light flooded in. The animals emerged, free, walking on the mud that would soon be life. And Noah, with slow steps, stepped onto the ground. The same ground that had been judged now received blessing. He built an altar, the first altar of a new world, and there, in silence, he offered a sacrifice to the God who judges.
but also renews. The aroma rose to the heavens, and God spoke.
Never again will I destroy all flesh. As long as the earth exists, there will be seed time and harvest, cold and heat, day and night.
And then the seal of the covenant appeared, an arc of colors crossing the heavens, an eternal reminder that justice may wound, but mercy always heals.
Is it a pact?
Between heaven and earth.
The earth, though wounded, flourished again. Shoots appeared between wet stones. Birds sang. Rivers carved new paths. Life, silently, began again. The cold nights brought stories and hope. Noah's sons worked. Their wives gathered roots, planted seeds, and the flame of the hearth burned brightly again. Noah knew evil still resided in the heart of man, but he also knew that God's love was greater. The ancient world of giants and rebellious angels had been buried beneath the waters, and a new world, more humble and pure, was born beneath the arch of promise. Because the flood was not just destruction, it was rebirth. And the ark, more than a refuge, was the womb of humanity. The earth was purified, but the heart of man still needed to be transformed.